Now, when it comes to husband and wife relationships, or anything, any relationship, or when it comes to what the Bible says, don't ever go to the Bible to excuse really rotten behavior. Okay, don't ever go to the Bible to try to justify why it's okay to hurt people. Does the Bible teach here that the wife doesn't have power of her own body? Yes, it does. Does the Bible teach that the husband doesn't have power of his own body? Yes, it does. What's the point? It's talking about this physical relationship. This is why it started off with fornication. And then it's saying, hey, look, don't withhold that relationship from each other in your marriage. It's a pretty simple teaching, but it's going as far as just to say, look, you have to view this. You have to understand this. It's using language just to help you to understand how you ought to view things within your marriage for yourself so that you can be like, okay, yeah, no, I'm going to be loving, I'm going to be caring, and I'm going to be giving. And we understand we got married partially because we don't want to be committing fornication. But now we're married so we can engage in this act, in this beautiful act, this loving act together. But we're not going to hold that over the other person's head. We're not going to, restrict and say, no, we're not going to have that, because unfortunately that does happen in some people's marriage. That happens in some people's lives where you got people who are just withholding that and defrauding the other person. The Bible's saying, well, that's not the way it's supposed to be, and that's not the way God has ordained it. He says, no, it's, the only time you should be separating yourselves like that is for prayer and fasting, and then you come back together again. This is not to make it okay or think it's a good idea to force your spouse to do something that they just really are not wanting to do or whatever at that time and just force yourself on them. Look, that is not going to be good for your relationship. And don't just go and be like, well, see, look, the Bible says so. I'm not sinning. I didn't do anything wrong. Look, you are going to destroy your marriage if you try to force your spouse. And you say, just because it's not something that can be ruled by law, because, well, we're married, so this agreement is just long-standing. Whatever, man. You don't want to argue technicalities in your marriage. I'm not kidding. I'm serious. This is no joke. And it disgusts me to think that there are people out there that somehow feel justified in forcing themselves on their spouse. What is wrong with you? Where is your love? Where is your benevolence for your partner? If you think it's okay just to force yourself on them, that is twisted, my friends. You should care enough. Look, if something's wrong with your spouse in the sense that they're not feeling well, something's not right, mentally there's some problems, you should love them and care for them and understand and say, okay. What this is teaching is that you shouldn't have this power play and people just holding that over your head and holding it against them and having these long stretches of not having that relationship, because that relationship is important. But don't take this as the green light to go and force your spouse and just be like, well, that's what I'm going to do. That's weird. That's messed up. That is not a functional family at all. And what you're going to do, if you force something like that on somebody, you're going to cause bitterness, resentment, and hatred in their heart. Because that is a very hurtful thing to have be forced into that. Those are scars and damage that is not easy to heal from. That is not how you want to lead your house. And don't for a second go and be like, well, I'm justified. You're going to destroy your marriage.